Hi, welcome back to this week's episode of Open Agenda. With us in the house, we have Joe White from Parsonsburg.
Hello.
And from Fruitland, Miss Trish Melvin.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for both being here. Now, this is kind of a special episode in some ways because something occurred at the City Council meeting yesterday, June 8th, that I think touches on a lot of issues that have been going on in the community. It was, to some extent, a fairly standard meeting. The legislative session brought up several resolutions and proclamations. There was a pretty robust discussion about a housing development happening near Shoemaker Pond that we're going to get into in a future episode.
The annexation.
The annexation issue. And again, that is a very important issue that has been brought up before that we are intending to analyze in greater depth in the future. But what actually occurred was somewhat not planned. There was a very robust discussion about a revamp of the city code of conduct with regard to the behavior and actions of elected officials.
Focus on elected officials?
Correct.
Okay.
And this really stems from, as both of you know, a pretty long-standing set of grievances and concerns that are happening both in the council chambers but outside as well with regard to what people are doing on social media or through the creation of TikTok videos. And I think a lot of those frustrations boiled over finally.
And some of those frustrations come from, they're just not happy. A couple of them aren't happy with who the mayor is, right?
That's part of it. There's also debates on policy and also, from what I gather, sort of just generally like personal issues that some people, it seems, are bringing in. And we can't necessarily pinpoint it on an ideological perspective all the time. It seems to be much more connected to a broader thing. So what I'd like to do is I'd like the public to see some of the footage of the city council meeting,
Okay.
Particularly some of the comments by, again, sitting council members. And then I'd like to both not just get your reactions, but sort of talk about this from sort of the 10,000-foot level, right? Like what does the current city council tensions between its members, the mayor, et cetera, what are these concerns that are now boiling over? What do they mean for our broader civic life, citizen participation? Are there liabilities in terms of what that could lead to as far as public concern? And also, what are the economic and business ramifications of having a city government that on some days just appears really dysfunctional?
Okay.
So let's take a watch if it's okay, and then we'll come back and maybe get your thoughts on it from different vantage points. Does that sound
Sounds
good?
good.
Sounds good.
All right, well, let's roll that beautiful bean footage, as they say. Stick around, and we'll be back in a few minutes with our discussion here on Open Agenda.
At this time, we will move into our council discussion on the Code of Conduct. A draft resolution based on the previous conversations was included in the packet for the council's review. During our last discussion, there was interest in adding a social media section and including some type of consequence for accountability purposes.
I mean, I have to say, yeah, I agree. So we're looking at number 6, just number 6.
Any at all? Just
For
the
a point of
overall.
clarity, I think you had already agreed that you wanted 6 added. I don't know that
Yes.
we've officially done that. I believe since then, there has been some discussion regarding a need to address social media. So I think the question is, do you just want to adopt the red line changes, or do you want to discuss in a code of conduct social media?
It looked fine to me, for number 6 did, but I think you're right, I don't think it says anything about social media. So I don't know if we're going to add something about social media at the same time we make these changes, or we make these changes and then talk about social media.
I think we should do
We'll
it
just
all
do it all
at
Kind of
once.
makes sense to do it all at once.
Yeah.
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 Okay, recommendations for the social media section, how you would like it worded, what you would like to have included.
We actually started to, administration is working on that because it is very tedious with First Amendment rights. So I think what it would probably, if there's an appetite from council to address that in its code of conduct, I think the easier thing to do would be for administration with legal review to propose what it would look like, and then for you to discuss that. I think that's probably the most
I was
effective
going to say,
and
Yes.
effective
this seems like
purpose.
it's getting, I feel like the social media aspect is going to get into some legal, tricky territory, and I just,
So I think
I think moving this forward is fine, and then
If we
let
need to
the,
add something else.
yeah, if they have any suggestions,
For the
we can
legality
listen to
of it.
them.
We don't want to get in trouble, so.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I would like to know, if you want me to spend the time to look into, would be the consequences of a breach of the code of conduct. And I think one of some ways that you could do that would be to allow for public censure, and then potentially if there could be a fine associated with that. Now, I have not cracked the books to see whether our actual charter and the state law would allow the city to impose some type of fine for a breach.
I don't think that's something that I'm interested in. I don't think that it needs to be punitive. I think that this is just something that we need to have as a standard, and that's it. I think getting into the punitive aspect of it just adds unnecessary drama.
Well, I would have to say, yeah, I mean, we should act professional, right? We shouldn't have to tell people what they should say on their social media pages. However, when I find and am sent memes of a Steve Wilkos show and me, I mean, I draw the line there, right? I mean, we're adults, and we are elected, appointed, whatever you take it for. I'm very careful with my social media and have taught my children the same thing, because once it's there, it's forever. I don't think that as professionals, with the citizens watching us, making some of the videos and the comments that we do about each other is just appropriate. I don't know if you can put a sanction on that, because to me it's professionalism and it's kind of common sense. I think if we're going to sit here as adults, we should have open and adult conversations and not run to social media to disagree with each other. Or to give opposing, this is what should be going on because we don't like what's happening behind this table. We are here to work together, and the social media and the AI is really, in my opinion, it's really not helping the situation at all. Does not show that we are a united front when we are making videos like that. And I don't have to be your friend to see them, because believe me, in this community, anybody will send them real quick. So it just kind of is sad to me that we're at a place as adults that we have to say, you shouldn't go on TikTok and do that. Because I would never do that to anybody at this table, whether I agree with you, whether we talk, whether we don't. I find it a matter of respect, and it's the respect I carry for all of you at the table.
Do you want to work on submitting a statement that reflects what you have just shared?
So in my opinion, yes. I do think there needs to be something in place. I mean, maybe let it go once, maybe let it go twice, but this is continual. We can't just think because we're elected and appointed that we can say whatever we want about each other and post disgusting, in my opinion, things, because I would never do that to someone else. So there has to be something in place. Whether you're elected or appointed, you can't just run and post all this stuff, but then sit behind a table and not share those ideas. To me, it just absolutely makes no sense. Why we're running to social media instead of having those conversations, or why we feel that a video making fun of our council members, and I'm not always going to agree with the mayor, and that's
Sure you are.
no, obviously. But it's things like that I just feel they're immature. And that's just my personal opinion. And maybe it's because that's the way I was brought up and the way I've raised my kids. But you will never find any social media post that I make insulting anyone else. That's not my personality.
I have too. I've had some calls, and I promised I would bring it up publicly. The concern with two of our council members walking out of a meeting before it's finished is disrespectful not only to the public, but it's disrespectful to the rest of us, regardless of how someone feels. I don't know that that's part of the code of conduct.
It's a matter of respect. And I have respect whether I agree with all of you or not. I have respect for you. And I can look you all in your face right here and say that. And whether I don't agree with anything you say, and that's most of the time for some, I still am not going to run to social media or AI flyers and do that. I'm not going to walk out while any of you are talking. While you may not think that's true, you've never seen me walk out yet.
I've been here 10, like I said, almost 11 years. I made one boo-boo. One. On Facebook. And I promised I would never, ever do that again. But I apologize not for what I said, but by how I said it and who was included in that message. And I promised myself I would never do that again, and I haven't. There's been times when I've been so mad in here, so angry and bitter, frustrated, I'll put it, and I have never, ever walked out of here. And I can still be cordial with you, even if we don't agree.
If we're talking about respectful, how about the respect of giving a fist bump to the mayor when taking away the unionization rights of the employees? How about laugh-reacting comments on posts from constituents, laugh-reacting them when they're talking about this issue? But what I have been putting out has been reaching people, and I have gotten immense positive feedback from it, from the constituents, from the people. Because not only are they getting a laugh out of it, because it is ridiculous what has been going on in this city in recent months, they are getting informed, they're getting engaged, they're learning what is happening through these memes. Because oftentimes, those memes are connected to an article I've written that explains what is happening behind the scenes. And yes, I am allowed to give my point of view. We are not going to all lockstep, and people are allowed to know that. So you can try and put in rules to censure. I am not going to stop reaching my constituents where they are, whether it is on TikTok, Facebook, or anywhere else. And if you don't like what I'm saying, and you don't like what I am calling out, and you don't like what you see, maybe you need to change your votes. Maybe you need to change your attitudes, because I've heard nothing but attitude from many of the members sitting up here publicly. And if you don't like me walking out, then don't do things that are so disrespectful to our city employees that I can't stand to sit here for the embarrassment and shame of what this council has done in recent months. So you can chide me and scold me, you can censure me, I don't care.
I'm not going to, Council President, I just want to say, this is pointless.
Let this go. Let it go.
I just want to say the fist bump thing, though, that was taken out of context. But like other people's AIs and their disgusting TikToks, that's okay. But my, you know what? It's no point
Let
in
it
saying
go.
anything.
Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Because like I said, I'm not walking out of here being mad or angry or bitter or
let me
nothing.
add
I'm
one
going to
thing.
the door and be peaceful.
I don't know which president I'm looking at right now, but
Just one, EVP.
let me say something. I went through 32 months, probably solid, where as the mayor, who represents 50% of the legislative body, couldn't even speak at his own at a meeting. Even when I had a veto on the table, you want to talk about disrespect? I mean, it was like every time I try to speak. Ridiculous. I never walked out of a single meeting. I never missed a single meeting. Well, I might have missed one, I think, for a family issue. And so I don't have any empathy whatsoever with your level of frustration. Believe me, I've got plenty to go around for all of us. And I've done so, I think, with his best ability of grace. And it's been very frustrating. And it's just this mischaracterization and this pit one against the other and the TikToks and the craziness. Let's just come in here and do business and have a serious conversation of a mature level and be consistent about it, okay?
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
So, welcome back to Open Agenda. Now that you've both seen the footage and the audience has got a sense of what happened at the last council meeting, I think you begin to see how the issues that have sometimes developed on the news, that have been reported in brief snippets, really kind of boiled out into the open here. And one of the things that struck me that was interesting about those interactions and those comments was specifically some of the things that Councilmember Melissa Holland said. And I think that's important to look at her view, perhaps first, because she is the newest member of the council.
Yep.
She was appointed, so she's coming at this, in a sense, with the freshest pair of eyes.
Yeah.
And I think she's tapping into the frustration that disagreements on policy, on politics, even on personality, are things that should be addressed within the council chambers rather than online.
One thing she has proven is that she does her homework, and I'm not vouching for any of her political views one way or another.
Yeah.
But when they've talked about the budget, when they've talked about annexation, collective bargaining,
Yeah.
she has formed her opinion based off of the work she's done.
Yeah.
And it does seem like not all the council members, because I have a lot of respect for Sharon DeShield and her professionalism, and I align a lot with her political views, but there's not you're not leaning on just the rhetoric, just the same old tired lines. It seems like it's nothing but a bunch of sound bites, especially on social media.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Trish?
Well, I understand why Melissa brought it up, because comments made by council members can reflect back on her
Yeah.
as a member of that group.
Yeah.
And I understand that there's an interest in revamping the code of conduct.
Yeah.
Why is the current code of conduct not satisfactory? I mean,
Well,
Good point.
And I think that lack of satisfaction was reflected in some of those comments, because it seems that there is a belief among some of the council members that the things that others are doing and saying in public, again, mainly through social media, be it Facebook posts or TikTok videos, is not only showing a lack of decorum, but is kind of polluting the atmosphere within the council chambers.
It's hard to have a good argument later when somebody has ventured that far off.
Correct.
And maybe that's the answer to Tricia's question. Maybe when the last code of conduct was written, it was really before social media was so intertwined
I think,
with our
and that
society.
that is something that Melissa Holland did say, and I think a few others did bring it up, is that social media does now represent all this possibility, but all these other pitfalls too, because it's advancing so fast. People are using it in different ways. That's changing almost week to week. And I think government, or any institution, right? Institutions are generally slow to respond to those kind of changes. And you see that at the local level. Like, to me, if you could step out of the local connections that most of us have to the officials and to the issues in the city, it's actually quite a fascinating example of how a local government is struggling to deal with a rapidly intensifying and changing social media landscape, and how that's affecting how we actually communicate as humans.
Well, when you look at how perception can mold reality, as a business owner, if I'm moving into Salisbury, it would give me pause to come in, whether it's just a restaurant, and I say just a restaurant, if it's just, any business, right?
Yeah.
And the thought that, okay, if I'm going to have to go up in front of this council to talk about challenges I'm facing as someone who's trying to invest in the community,
Yeah.
and this is how they air their grievances. Well, there's a lot of other towns and cities in the area. Maybe I would want to at least venture out there first.
Yeah.
well, it occurs to me that if an elected official chooses to say things or act in a certain way outside of the chambers, they do so at their own risk.
Yeah.
And the code of conduct it's perhaps the ballot box.
Yeah. And this has been brought up by others before, right? Is that,
yeah, I agree.
you have the individual standards and thoughts of what some elected officials would hope occurs in council chambers, but ultimately you can't control people, so ultimately it's the voters that may have the final determination.
And some of these same council members who use social media maybe outside of the most professional way for an elected official are also the ones who clamored for getting more people involved in politics. Well, they may actually be driving their own critics to get more involved.
It could go both ways, and it was interesting. It's interesting that you brought that up, because I believe it was Councilmember Gregory who basically said that part of why she engages in making these TikTok videos especially is it's her way of reaching the young, reaching people to sort of fire up civic activism. I don't personally agree with that. And full disclosure, I have had issues with a couple of videos that she made in reference to me and even my son, and I don't agree with her argument. But you could make the argument, in theory, that social media does have some utility to reach out to people. But then again, it becomes, how are you doing it? What is your message? And does it in fact backfire? And I think we're seeing that you could take that approach from all angles.
If I was new coming into the city and I didn't know any of the elected officials, the mayor, any of the council women who are already there, and my first interaction was some of the TikTok videos I've seen come out from Michelle Gregory, it would make me apprehensive. I wouldn't feel engaged. I would actually feel disengaged because if you don't line up politically with that individual, are you going to end up being a subject of a meme? I'm not saying that you didn't insert yourself as a public figure. And some folks have. I have.
Yeah.
I'm saying just as somebody who's just trying to come in to make a living.
Right.
And you end up as fodder for something like that.
So the fears of somebody in just a business sense or in an investment sense to the city are really apparent as an outsider based on what these folks are doing in chamber.
You want to see stability.
Yeah.
That is, you want there to be monetary policy that has some stable. You want development policy that's stable.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with every aspect. That's not what democracy is.
Right.
What you want to have is a level of standards, and code of conduct would be one of them.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I also saw Angela Blake's Facebook post where she was talking about a communications director. And, I don't live in the city, but I love Salisbury. I want to see it thrive. My understanding is they were talking about a public communications officer who would make about $85,000 a year.
This was from last year when they had that discussion.
Well, but it was referenced. I still think it's still being referenced, right?
Yeah.
Well, do you then direct this public information officer to put the same vitriol out? I mean, so we need a code of conduct for the elected officials, maybe, but also if you're going to have a public information officer, what's their standard? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm insulated from a lot of that due to my lack of many social media accounts, but some of it does filter back to me.
Yeah.
And I've enjoyed maybe one or two of Michelle's posts that came my way. There's a lot of them I don't see, but public officials put information out there in the public sphere at their own risk. And I don't think you can legislate behavior.
And I think that's what the council began to realize as that discussion progressed is there really is, or doesn't seem to be, a lot you can do to corral someone's personal behavior, even if they are a public official. That comes with all kinds of, obviously, First Amendment issues, but also just human behavior. You can't tell somebody after a meeting adjourns, don't say this about me or somebody else.
Yeah.
And so the question becomes, you have to sort of put your hope in other people's, being, rising to the better angels of their nature. Now, humans are not always going to do that, and I think that frustration came across in some of the comments. But one thing I do think that the council is increasingly concerned about is what happens when an official there decides to leave a meeting early.
And we've seen that a couple times.
It has, or just be disruptive in a different way. And I think the physical decorum in the room, I think, is a little bit different. And I don't know how they're going to get to a resolution for that as well, but that certainly is something that is now being discussed, is what do you do when a council member decides to leave a meeting because they don't like the outcome of a vote or they don't like a comment that was said by someone else?
Well, we even saw back in January, the former council president, when Angela Blake was council president, the police were brought in one time, I think because she disagreed with how some folks were reacting in the audience.
Yeah.
When you walk out, it's meant to send a statement. When you ask the police to show up, it's meant to send a statement.
Right.
But none of those statements are, we're trying to be more open-minded or we're trying to hash through our differences.
Yeah.
Look, I'm the first one to say, hey, look, let's hash it out. Let's do it in public.
Yeah.
But let's do it respectfully if you want good results.
Yeah.
Once you just want to be right, well, you can put yourself in a silo and do that.
You can't legislate everything. You know, you can make all the legislation and codes of conduct that you want, but people will still behave in ways that you may not agree with.
Yeah. And I fear that, as you said regarding the echo chamber or the silos, I think that's worsening as people go to social media to not get informed, but to affirm their view, to double or triple down on a position, rather than actually have a human conversation and get to maybe some kind of, I don't even want to say middle ground, but just some consensus as to how we operate. Like, I really genuinely wonder, if social media did not exist, how would this current group of council members operate? Would it be different? I think it would
be.
and I think it would be a little bit better, a little bit perhaps. But I certainly don't think it would have devolved into the state that some people feel it's gone in recent years.
I think every level of society would be better
Yeah.
without the social media environment that
Yeah.
we live in.
Yeah.
Before social media, if you had something you wanted to say, you had to contextualize it in a way that made people want to know what you were about to say.
Right.
Now with social media, everybody can say whatever they want to say, all
Right,
they want,
yeah.
which is more freedom, and
Yeah.
you can't legislate it. I agree with you
Sure,
there.
yeah.
But I think for the listener of the social media, wherever you're at, could be national politics, state
Yeah.
politics, county,
Yeah.
city, if you're getting just your information from social media, I think you should just take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
And and go from there.
And
be
I think-
skeptical.
Yeah, and again, like, no one's saying that, the use of social media is something that we're all above as far as, doing behavior. Like, I am, as some people know, I have made some very passionate and at times insulting comments of people online. Now, those are things that I think were based on criticisms of someone's performance as a public official, but nevertheless, it hits differently on social media than in person. And how we get back to the human focus, the human interaction, when we're not even willing to have conversations in a council chamber room, is
Well,
very concerning to
And
me.
you're 100% right. And at the end of the day, those 5 council women and the mayor, they have a job to do.
Yeah.
So whatever it is they're doing, it can't distract from getting the job done at hand. And I think that's very important to remember as well.
Yeah.
That's the reason I actually canceled my Facebook account a few years ago, because I'm just as capable of being rude to people and
Yeah.
offending people, and I
No
don't
way.
want to, so I
Yeah.
just canceled my account.
Yeah.
It's not a fair fight.
Well, and sometimes, too, you write things or make comments that are taken the wrong way because we interpret things differently in text than we do.
It even happens
In
with
person.
family. When you text family, what do you want for dinner? I don't know. But without a tone, it could go so many different ways. So
Yeah.
people just should remember that too. It may not even be intentional,
Yeah.
but it could still be misleading,
Yeah.
even if it's unintentional.
But I think as an elected official, intentionality is really the order of the day when you're in that council room, because you are intentionally representing your constituents, the city. You have the work and business of the city to get to. And if you can't even agree on, what is sort of basic good manners and behavior, I don't know how you expect to just function in the broader community.
And so why does the current code of ethics or code of behavior not address, can it be extended for social media?
I think that's
be
what
nice and don't be rude.
I think that's what they're going to try to do. But like, to your point, I think the current code of conduct really hasn't developed since the rise of social media. So again, like we were saying, this is somewhat playing catch up. I just think that the city has unfortunately devolved over the last few years into a situation where it might be too late to sort of expect better behavior just based on the issues that have divided them, the personalities, and how social media has just entrenched some of the worst behaviors. I think you had brought up before that people that live in these echo chambers often embrace narcissistic behavior. And I think that's not good for local government when you try to be the focus of the issue rather than the issue be the focus. But nevertheless, we'll see where this goes. I appreciate your insights coming at it from both somebody in Fruitland and Parsonsburg and someone who's involved in a lot of commissions and civic activism and business activities, because all these issues are intertwined. And I think we're beginning to see the cost of that interaction. So thank you very much for watching this special episode of Open Agenda, and we'll see you very soon with a new analysis. Take care.
this is all going to make it on the show.